Here comes the summertime, the feeling's in it.
Let's get into the thick of the summer, Rob.
Skiing.
I remember cigarettes, tube socks, sunburns, and long blonde hair.
What's that all about?
What about podcasts, Rob?
Cigarettes, tube socks, sunburns, and long blonde hair. Watermelon, finger banging, purple rain, and being cool.
Grenoble to you and me, unless you're French. Super de, right? And Barcelona. Yep. Super.
Yeah, I think you're doing well. You're doing well. Keep going. You're doing really well.
Pen Mac. I knew that was going to get
Spooky wood.
Yeah. Things we do.
So, Rob, here comes the summertime, eh?
Yes, Dom. Yeah. I remember cigarettes, tube socks, sunburns, and long blonde hair. Well, maybe not the cigarettes, but the rest for sure. Yeah.
Tube socks, more like skiing, surely. Surely that's a winter thing.
Yeah. Okay. How about I remember watermelon, finger banging, purple rain, and being cool?
Finger banging. Are you sure?
Yeah, it's the words of Josh Roos, actually, not mine. I think it's a musical reference. I do it a lot, that sort of, tapping on the table.
I really hope it is a musical reference, but maybe we should get him on the podcast to explain himself.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he did this song about summer. That's kind of the reference, why I thought about it. But yeah. I don't think he's a skier, although he does also sing. And the feeling doesn't last that long. Before you know it, it's up and gone.
Oh, right. He's definitely British then.
Yes. Yeah, if he's talking about the summertime, that's true. Yeah, maybe like us though. Summer's just a bridge, right? Back to the next winter, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, these days it is, because we're launching our summer edition of the Whiteout podcast, and of course now it's all about summer in the mountains, which is fab.
Yeah, and I think summer's just getting better and better, isn't it? I mean, skiing, what's that all about?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we still love skiing, Rob, but yeah, true. Like the getting out to the mountains. Usually the Alps, in our case, during the summer is becoming definitely a place that where we want to be. It's becoming such a big part of most resorts now, isn't it? They're becoming sort of completely year-round offerings.
Absolutely. And so in our first edition of the Whiteout Podcast Summer, we really thought about that, didn't we?
Stick to the program, Rob. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be covering a whole raft of things, including, of course, our news roundup, where we'll also mention any relevant winter news too. And we'll be focusing on one particular activity in each episode. And this week, it's mountain biking. Then a destination feature as well, and a bucket list feature too.
Good stuff. So just like our normal Whiteout podcast format, but with a bit of warmth thrown in and some sunshine. Although with all the excitement, we haven't actually done the usual introductions, Rob.
True. Yeah, I was just thinking we need one of those jingles, like they have on the radio. Do you know what I mean?
What you mean, like this Tony Blackburn one, Rob? What about this?
Tony Blackburn, the happy sound of Radio 1.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to try and sing that actually. Dom Killinger from In the Snow on the Whiteout. It's got a ring to it.
Yeah. Okay, right. Well, in the meantime, thanks for the intro, Rob. And what about you?
Well, yes, my name is Rob Stewart, and I am co-presenter of the Whiteout and Run Ski Press Media and PR.
It's very BBC of you, Rob. I like that. So time to crack on, I think. So what is summer in the mountains all about? What can you do and where can you go, Rob? What do you think?
Good question, Dom. I think the thing is, being in the mountains during the summer is a very, very different experience to winter because, obviously during the winter, the primary focus is normally skiing or snowboarding, and you're often sort of out on the mountain all day, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then the summer mountain holiday can be, I guess, a lot more chilled. Certainly is when I go anyway. Of course, you could go up the mountain, purely for mountain biking and just go out and bike all day if that's your thing. But obviously, you can get the maximum out of your lift pass if that's what you want to do. Yeah.
If you're in a group and there's sort of non-mountain bikers, for example, you might then go for a hike. You might use the lifts. You might go for a swim. Yeah. There's often lakes or swimming pools, or just enjoy the environment, the town or the village you're in, and maybe have a nice lunch in the sun. I mean, there's a lot of options.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, e-mountain biking has grown massively, hasn't it, over the last few years? It's easy to rent them. They make life a lot easier, that's for sure, certainly when going uphill. And you don't need to be on the single track routes that can be quite intimidating for people that aren't used to them as well.
Yeah. That's true. And road cycling is also really popular in some areas, especially those places where the Tour de France might go through. And there's a lot of other famous cols. There's a lot of the tour riders that go through those mountain passes in the Alps.
Yeah, absolutely. And zip wires, Rob, they are cool. Remember last summer when we did that zip wire when we were in Jungfrau? We jumped on the mountain carts that are literally like go-karts that are just driven by gravity, where you just let go and you just fly. And then those scooters, what were they called? Trotty bikes, like scooters.
Oh, the trotty bikes, yeah.
I mean, they were scary, but serious fun.
Yes. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then you have like the classic hikes as well, and all the mountaineering, which I think is what people imagine it's like. Of course, these days there's just so much more to it, though. I mean, I did a summer in the mountains way back in Chamonix in '91. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you went there for then. It was to climb mountains and to hike.
Yeah. It's different now. And of course, you can still do all that stuff. But as a family, I know we both get out and spend plenty of time in these places during the summer, and they are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's not just the Alps. I mean, although I guess they're generally the easiest to get to if we're talking about overseas destinations. We're based in the UK, but we shouldn't also forget the mountains on our own doorstep, and we'll have a feature on that through the summer. The UK mountains, because there's some fantastic things you can do now in the UK. But the Alps, I guess, have got most to offer, right? Dolomites as well, the Pyrenees, Scandinavia and North America. They're also really popular destinations for mountain activities.
Absolutely, too right. I know you've got some good stats. You were talking to me about some of the stats. So maybe we'll just crack on with the news, should we, Rob?
Okay, that's a good idea, Dom. So first of all, we've got some winter news. There's quite a lot of news coming out right now that's winter related, funnily enough. So, we've just had a trade conference called Listex, where we saw the results of a large consumer survey based on skiers' winter habits, desires, and booking trends, which we'll bring to you in the next episode. We're going to bring a rundown of that. But there's a few other things. So what's happening, Dom?
Well, big news, Rob. We think so. Dave Riding, as we all know, and we've talked about many times this season, and for good reason, has switched brands, and he's signed up with Head, moving from Fisher, where he's been for several years now. So that's a pretty big story.
It is a big story. He was obviously with Dynastar for a while, and he switched back to Fisher. This is a big move, and towards the final stages of his racing career, I mean, it is a big move, but let's see.
Yeah, definitely interesting to watch next season, that's for sure. Yeah, very good. So what else is happening?
Yeah, our friends at Snow Camp, the charity, they raised over £250,000 at the recent AJ Bell Three Valley Rally, and took place in Val Thorens from April 13th to 16th. It was their 20th edition of this rally that raises money for people, young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, helping them to get into skiing and snowboarding. I mean, it's a fantastic thing, and that's a lot of money, isn't it?
That is a serious amount of cash, £250,000. I mean, that is an incredible event. So, well, we've just seen the 16th edition of the International Report on Snow and Mountain Tourism as well. So that was unveiled by Laurent Vanat during the opening conference of the Mountain Planet in Grenoble. Grenoble to you and me, unless you're French.
Yes.
It's business as usual, according to the king of ski stats. Winter 22-23 clocked again more than 370 million skier visits worldwide.
Yeah, a lot of people skiing. And Laurent, he had a right dig at some parts of the media. And I'm just going to read out what he actually said. His quote, right? This is not my quote. This is Laurent words. Despite the pre-formatted anti-ski ideology spread by mainstream media, politicians, and part of the general public, skiing is not yet finished. Many mountain destinations around the world are happy to continue welcoming their winter guests, supplying for substantial parts of their local economy. Although everybody in the industry is aware about the climate issues and working hard to consolidate a four-season logic, the path is long and not easy. But there is no way to kill skiing while it is still perfectly alive and will remain so for a long time in most of the resorts that make most of the ski business. Slightly convoluted, but that was his words.
He was keen to get his words out, wasn't he? So pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And then he also listed some of the key points in his findings that included records of attendance in several major mature markets, visitation from season passes on the rise in various countries, development of innovative ticketing solutions with continuous spread of dynamic pricing and alternative pricing models such as pay-per-use, a move from the traditional guest service focused on selling lift tickets towards providing an experience on the mountain, investments both to consolidate the ski business and to diversify activities, and increase of four-season activity. Just what we want, improving economic sustainability of the lift operators.
And he also pointed out that China's the fastest growing ski market. I mean, let's see how that evolves. But, skiing in China is a bit different to the Alps right now. But just another quick winter alpine race story before we move on to the summer. And this is not that new in regards to news, but Norwegian ski racer Lucas Brathens, who quit ski racing right at the start of last season, if we remember that, still young, at the top of his game. It was all a bit odd. But he's now announced that he's coming back and racing for Brazil.
Okay.
I mean, he is half Brazilian. His mother was Brazilian or is Brazilian. And so it kind of makes sense. But it must feel like a bit of a blow for the Norwegians, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And more recently, we heard about the legendary Austrian skier Marcel Hirscher making a comeback from retirement to compete for the Netherlands.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've always enjoyed watching Marcel. So, I really welcome that. But I do also feel it's random swapping of nations. Might set a precedent. I'm not really sure about it all. Yeah. I mean, good luck to him. And if he does well, then fair enough. But I don't know if I'm convinced that even the mighty Hirscher will make the sort of impact that he would want. But let's see.
Definitely interesting to see. We'll hold you to that prediction, Rob.
Yeah, and just going back to Brathens as well, because this is actually really new. That's just come out that British World Cup giant slalom skier Charlie Raposo, we interviewed him a couple of seasons ago now. He's retired from ski racing at the age of 28. He did have a serious knee injury last season, but he's just announced a role with Lucas Brathens as his manager. So that's really interesting.
Wow. Watch this space. It's all happening. Great stuff. But let's get into the thick of the summer, Rob. Otherwise, we'll just be talking skiing all day as we always do.
No, you're right. Okay. Summer news. Who's going to kick this off? Yeah, I mean, there was a summer survey recently out as well, just talking about, the growth in summer tourism. Over half of skiers say they go to the mountains in summer. Yeah. Travel-wise, it's 50-50 between flying and driving out to the mountains, and train travel's up to 5%, which is a bit of a rise from last year, almost double actually. Mm-hmm. And that's different to the winter. So a lot more people drive to the mountains, but 70% still go to hike. Wow. And 30% for mountain biking, 20% for road cycling. France is still the most popular, but I mean, that makes sense if people are driving. It's closer. 61% saying they go there, but Austria is very close behind. Then Italy and Switzerland seeing a lot of growth actually around the same time as Italy, which is around 50% of people saying they go to Italy as well. So, that makes sense because 61% people say they go to France, but then 50% say they go to Italy. So what that means is, some of those people go to both.
Yeah.
4-star hotels are the most popular type of accommodation in the summer. It's a bit different to the ski season.
Yeah.
And you might be interested in this, Dom. 30% of people look to magazines and newspapers for advice of where to go. And that's more than taking advice over family members, for example. So resort websites are also really important. But I think it's significant amounts of people that actually do go to look at the media to get their advice about where to go.
Definitely good news for us here at In the Snow, and to hear how popular magazines and newspapers are. What about podcasts, Rob?
There wasn't a question about that yet.
Come on, get with the times. Get with the time.
I know.
So let's talk glaciers. There's been lots of news surrounding the glacier areas in the Alps this summer and the restrictions on summer skiing. There's actually incredible conditions out on the glaciers right now, but for various reasons, many are either closing or summer skiing restricting the numbers, which is, I guess, understandable. This is mostly due to climate change, of course. But Zermatt, for example, has banned ski racing teams from training, which some are saying is a little bit down to the fact that the FIS decided to cancel any ongoing alpine ski races there are for those 2 failed seasons we've just had.
Yeah, it's a bit ironic because it looks like the conditions right now, like you said, will set the summer skiing season up quite nicely. But there you go. What else is happening, Dom?
Well, there's a Tour de France as always that will visit the mountains in July, both the Pyrenees and the Alps. Let's look at some of the mountain finishes for the Tour de France this summer.
Oh yeah, I've always wanted to go and see that, and I haven't actually ever done that.
Oh, it'd be absolutely amazing. Really, really thrilling to see that. So in the Pyrenees, we have finishes in Saint-Lary and Plateau de Bay. I think I've said that right. And then in the Alps, there are finishes in Valois, Super de Vouilly. All right, and Barcelonette. Yeah. Super.
Yeah, I think you're doing well. You're doing well. Keep going. You're doing really well.
And Isola 2000, Domine, and also starts in Saint Jean de Maurienne and Embrun.
Yes, nice to see Embrun. I think so. I mean, well, don't quote me on that. Yeah. I did a summer there actually years ago. Great water sports on the lake. whitewater rafting on the river, canyoning, climbing, all sorts in Ombrun.
And of
Nice
course,
place.
we'll see some climbs on the famous col, such as the Galibier. And for the very first time, the tour starts in Italy with a few stages, including Florence and Rimini, and then finishes in Nice due to the Olympic Games taking place in Paris. So you can check all that out on the letour.fr/en for the English version. So letour.fr, I'll put that in the notes section. So very cool.
Nice. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
I'm going to get to Ombrun.
Ombrun. Yeah, someone's going to pull me up on my pronunciation on Ombrun, aren't they, as well, I think.
What age were you when you were there?
I think I was 19.
Crikey.
Yeah. I actually did a ski season a couple of years after that, just above Ombrun in a place called Les Ors, which I probably pronounced wrong as well. But there's a little ski resort just above Ombrun called Les Ors. And it's not really on the map for a lot of skiers, but it's a cool place. And anyway, I haven't been back there for years.
Cool. Sounds good. Got rid of the horse and carts there now. What else?
Well, Ombrun, yeah, Ombrun. I spent that summer in a tent, actually, in a campsite. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. No, the Tour de France is going to be really interesting this year, and the finish in Nice will be obviously very, very different due to the Olympics, as you say. But anyway, on to mountain bikes, because we're going to focus on mountain bikes in this edition. But it is worth mentioning that Rossignol, the famous ski manufacturer, of course, a couple of years ago, they launched a range of mountain bikes, and they've now got some new bikes out this year. There's 5 in the range for men and women and juniors as well, based on sort of different size options. They're classic sort of full suspension trail bikes starting around £2,000 and they go up to around 3,500. But
nice.
I mean, yeah, good price points. It also looks like they're discounting them quite a bit on their website right now as well. So check that out on rossignol.com/GB-EN. Again, for the English version of that website.
Yeah, the bike market's pretty tough right now, and it's interesting to see a new, sort of Rossignol really sort of moving into that market in a bigger way over the last few years. But nice if you can get a really good deal on a nice mountain bike just now.
Yeah, I think you can, and their Rossignol's Trail Mandate XP is the top of the range one. Spec looks good. Right now, it's 2,265 instead of the full price, which was 3,775, so quite heavily discounted.
Nice. It's a third off, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's pretty nice. So, and another new bike launch that has grabbed our attention is the Scott Voltage E-Ride, an e-mountain bike. Scott Sports said the Voltage E-Ride is designed for existing mountain bike enthusiasts who crave an agile, lightweight, and insanely capable trail bike. Is that what you're craving, Rob?
I crave that a lot, actually.
With the addition of a compact and quiet motor to take you further than ever before. Sounds a bit all right to me. I like Scott bikes.
Yeah, I like the sound of that, Dom, and I do like an e-bike as well, and especially in the Alps, right? So what's the cost of that? What are we looking at?
Prices start at about $6,000 and they head up to about 12. Top of the range. So basically you could buy a really nice used car for that. Scott-sports.com. And that used car would have an engine as well. So you can check those bikes out at scott-sports.com/GBEN Voltage. So just put in the voltage or voltage. But the price looks pretty set in on these right now. So there you go. If you've got your $12,000 spare, Rob, might as well get one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of money, isn't it? It seems to be an area of the market that is still growing, though, and people are prepared to spend money on those higher range e-bikes. I mean, it brings us nicely into our activity focus for this episode, which is actually about mountain biking.
Yeah, mountain biking, firmly established as a mountain sport. Destinations that have ski lift infrastructure have been offering uplift more and more over the years, and it's now a massive part of mountain destination strategy for sure. When we're there in the winters, we're talking to these people, they are always talking about their mountain bike, biking strategy as well. So especially in the Alps and in North America, but also plenty of other destinations too, including, of course, in the UK, which is some of the best trail centers in the world as far as I'm concerned. So albeit not necessarily have the uplift options as well. Yeah,
trail centers in the UK, great. I've spent many happy days in Scotland and Wales over the years, and you know the sort of what's known as maybe enduro riding, a mix of climbing, single track downhill, although there's some great downhill only options as well, like Pipe Wells, that's got uplift. So yeah, UK trail centers are definitely a great place to start, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, a quick look at the history of mountain biking really coming out of the BMX scene in the 70s and 80s and taking off in California with the first hardtail bikes through the 80s and 90s, and then front suspension, of course, caught on before full suspension bikes, but they were pretty heavy. The development came through the noughties and the 2010s where bikes became lighter and lighter. And then, of course, e-mountain bikes kicked in too. So it's been quite a development.
Yeah, it has. And I mean, the whole sort of development of different styles and categories came out of that, and competitions, including the Olympic discipline of cross-country mountain biking that started up at the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia. Then there was the first official world championships that took place in 1990 in Durango, Colorado. But, you know, since then, the sport has really, really developed, and there's several different mountain biking disciplines. So why don't we take a look at that?
Yeah. So there's a world championships every year, but also a World Cup circuit. It's not dissimilar to how ski racing works in some ways, and it's run by the UCI, the Union Cycliste International, based in Switzerland. So the disciplines are, so you've got cross country, the Olympic discipline. You've got cross country marathon, a longer version of cross country. You've got cross country eliminator, a fast action packed race over a short course with 4 riders per team. What else have we got? The downhill, fast up to, that's a fast downhill up to 80 kilometers an hour. Technical, lots of jumps. So that's quite cool. Yeah. You've got 4 cross, pretty similar to ski and snowboard cross. And you've got enduro, which is basically cross country, but with more downhill and more technical sections. There you go. Yeah,
right. I mean, lots of disciplines, which also means lots of different categories of mountain bikes as well to sort of suit all of those needs. So simply put, there's hardtails, which means front suspension only for the cross country. Then you've got enduro style bikes for the enduro, very similar to sort of a trail bike with a few differences. I mean, these setups have got full suspension. They're also pretty light, so good for both up and downhill, basically. Then the downhill bikes, which obviously have full suspension and bigger front forks. I mean, I'm kind of simplifying all of this, but this is known as the travel on the bike, the range of the front forks have and the size of them, but also the rear suspension too. It's quite a complex picture. And if you're thinking about buying a mountain bike, you definitely need to do some research on exactly what sort of setup would work best for you. You know, I think taking in consideration where you're going to ride as well. Cost is a big factor to that. I mean, basically less is more. What I mean by that, the lighter the bike, you know, the more expensive is a pretty crude way to look at it anyway. Yeah. I suppose the exception to that rule is the e-bike now, and the full suspension e-mountain bikes that are essentially a trail bike setup a lot of the time. That's the most popular version of the e-mountain bike. I mean, like the Scott Voltage e-ride that we mentioned before.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's heaps of gear to go with it. Maybe not quite as much as skiing, but there is a whole world of gear out there when it comes to mountain biking. So let's take a look at some of that gear.
Do you want to kick that off?
Yeah, I will. Helmets. I'm always a keen man to wear a good helmet. Probably the number one priority, and obviously, as far as I'm concerned, completely crucial if you're going to be getting into mountain biking. Don't do it without a helmet. So
absolutely,
it's a certain style of mountain bike helmets that are different from road cycling type, but for the standard trail riding stuff, there's not a huge difference. So for downhill and anything that involves a bike park, or for example, any kind of downhill riding in the Alps, a full face helmet is needed, which includes a section over the chin. The more serious ones look almost like motorcycle helmets, basically. Downhill riders can also wear goggles that have clear lenses. So that's, there's an option there too.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of other protection, you know, like shin and knee pads, elbow pads, back protector as well, especially if you're doing downhill. Generally, you know, that's not worn for cross-country riding, but for trail riding and sort of downhill in the Alps, I would go full on protection there. Yeah. And then you've got shoes. You know, there's big consideration. Road cyclists often wear cleats, you know, that clip into the pedals. Cross-country mountain bikers could often choose to do that as well. Yeah. And then some trail riders, I mean, might choose to clip in to have cleats. But, you know, it's I quite like being clipped in, but, you know, a lot of riders don't. The more technical and downhill it gets, the less you'd be wanting to do that. You know, downhill riders, trail, a lot of downhill stuff. You're just going to have flat pedals and mountain bike shoes that don't clip into the pedals, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. And then there's clothing, gloves are key, and there's half finger or full finger options with padding on them. Different types of mountain biking shorts too. Again, some with padding and even protection built in. So Yeah, we could go into masses of detail around the clothing, and we will be reviewing some throughout this summer as well. But a lot is down to personal preference.
Yeah, true. And I mean, obviously, you've got eyewear. I would always wear glasses, mountain biking of some kind, hydration packs with a backpack to hold them in. If you're mountain biking, you could obviously have a water bottle on the bike. But actually, when you're riding a lot, the Hydra pack is just more convenient. It's just easier to drink out of than trying to grab your water bottle when you're riding up a rocky little ridge.
Plenty to consider, isn't there? And I'd just say that if you're thinking about getting into mountain biking, then the UK is definitely a good place to start. It's less intimidating than the Alps, and great training if that is your end goal for sure.
Yeah, totally. Right. That brings us nicely into where to ride section, Dom.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Firstly, I've just heard from the guys at Roran Smith Ski Academy, and they've told me about their new Roran Smith Bike Academy based in Verbier over the summer. So Verbier has been positioning itself as a mountain bike destination now for quite a few years. The academy is also offering guiding with instruction for all levels there as well.
Nice.
So
that's great hearing that they're doing that. So, well, the Alps is obviously an incredible destination in general when it comes to mountain biking, and most ski resorts have managed to turn themselves into a complete lift service mountain biking destination, and more creating circuits for e-mountain biking too. So that's great to see.
Oh yeah, I know. I mean, we can't name them all, but let's start by going through a few of the UK trail centres. Start in Scotland. I mean, I discovered mountain biking there about 20 years ago. Glen Tress, possibly the most well-known trail centre, and it's really developed over the years. Spooky Wood is a classic red run. Quickly point out, I think red runs actually at UK trail centres are generally easier than the Alpine ones.
Yeah.
There's some incredible trail centres in Scotland. We should do a tour of them, Dom. What do you think about that?
Very cool tour to do when we've got a spare 2 weeks on our hands, Rob. Spare 2 weeks, but closer to your doorstep now, Rob, is Wales, where there's an abundance there too. In the south, you got Afan Forest Park, Bike Park Wales, and Cwmcarn, and then in the north Wales, Coed y Bryn, Arran Trail, and Penmacno. I knew that was going to get there. Penmacno. Oh yeah, and Penmacno to name a few, or to not name a few even.
Yeah, I mean, why you chose to read out the Welsh ones, Dom, I will never know.
I know.
I mean, come on, you should have given the Welsh ones to me, and I would have messed them up even more. But yeah, no, the Marin's an absolute classic actually for any mountain biker. Let's not forget England as well. Forest of Dean, right? It was very close to me. I'm only down the road from the Forest of Dean. Good little trail centre there. Yeah. Swinley Forest, right near Bracknell. Spent loads of time there over the years, and you wouldn't realise it, but it's some great sort of single track riding there. You don't get the vertical, but great facility, not too far from London. Check that out, swinleybikehub.com.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I know just before my daughter was born, about 15 years ago, I did a tour of some of the country's mountain bike trails, knowing it was like the last chance I would get for a very long time. And one of my favourites was in the Lake Districts, Grisdale in the Lake Districts. Such a beautiful spot up there. Very cool. Nice.
Very nice indeed. So what about the Alps, Rob? Any mountain biker cutting their teeth in the UK would surely want to go on that pilgrimage to some of the classic alpine mountain bike destinations for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so should we pick out maybe one destination from each alpine country? Because, we can't name everything, but I'm going to start with Leger in France, because arguably it is Europe's home of mountain biking and kind of where it all started, really, in Europe, the lift access mountain biking scene anyway.
Definitely. Well, we've already mentioned Verbier in Switzerland, which is the largest, but Bike Kingdom Lenzerheide follows closely behind. So that's a huge area linking up with Arosa too.
Oh, yeah, I fancy that actually. That sounds really nice. I'm going to mention the Dolomites in Italy, and specifically out of Selva Val Gardena, where you can do a mountain bike tour around the Sella ronda, pretty much like you would do on skis. Bit of lift riding. I'd recommend an e-bike for that, because there is quite a lot of uphill on it. I mean, if you're really fit, you could do it in a day on a normal mountain bike. But yeah, I mean, I'd definitely go e-bike. Personally,
that's a big trip.
There's about 3 lifts that you use on that Sella Ronda tour with the mountain bikes. Three gondolas, or 2 gondolas in a cable car.
Nice.
3 or 4. Yeah, and the rest of it is pedaling. But you take the 3 big lifts to help you with some of that vertical uplift. Wow. And there's some amazing single just, and it feels like you're just going and going and going on single track trails that aren't super hard. There was a couple of technical sections where, yeah, you could take, there was lots of options for easy stuff as well. Like we were in a mixed group. People didn't want to ride the single track trail stuff. They wanted to go on the access roads. So you could bail out of anything that was tricky on the downhill stuff.
Yeah.
And even the single track stuff was kind of like blue to red run territory. So nothing too kind of hardcore. It's just such a nice thing to do.
Super nice. And then, of course, in Austria, I'm going to mention the largest bike park, which is the Salbaach-Hinterglemm and Leogang. Obviously, a massive ski area in the winter and converts to a massive bike park in the summer too. So that's very cool.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, maybe we should go on a tour of these places, Dom.
Yeah,
it's just another idea. There is, of course, North America. Places such as Whistler. It's huge. Many others. Yeah. I think we should do a special on European bike parks and another one on North America ones.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's huge. Oh, well, it gives us plenty of content to go at, Rob. There's lots to talk about here for sure.
True. I mean, we're going to move on to our destination feature now, though. Not specifically on mountain biking, but this is looking at a summer mountain destination. And we're going to start with one that is arguably the most famous of all. Especially when it comes to the Alps anyway.
Well, had to start at the pinnacle of these places. So our summer podcast series starts with Chamonix, the French town at the foot of Mont Blanc that has a long history of tourism stretching back over 100 years. So we both know that place pretty well, Rob, both winter and summer. So it makes sense to start at Chamonix.
Yeah, I spent a summer here, even really young, ridiculously young, like 18 or something, and climbing and living off baguettes and cheese if I was lucky.
Well, since then, both of us have changed a bit, Rob, and we've stayed there over the summer, and maybe our standard of accommodation might have gone up a little bit since those camping days.
Yeah, that is true. But, camping's still pretty cool, Dom. Actually, I strolled through the place I stayed in all those years back recently, and they even have showers now. Amazing.
Never, not showers, Rob. I mean, that's far too posh.
You don't need to climb over the fence of the Chamonix swimming pool to get some washing done. Shouldn't have
it's a pretty unique
really.
place, isn't it, Chamonix? I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, very international during the summer. People from all over the world, very busy, busier than winter even. But yeah, super buzzy and great.
Yeah, I love that atmosphere in the town, and I know people that live there. Probably drives them a bit crazy, but actually it's what I like about the place. The town's got everything. It's got great shops. It's got a great selection of restaurants. It's got some cool bars. I think I'm just going to mention my favorite one of Bighorn, but don't tell anybody about that place. Okay. And
then there's that pretty big mountain, Rob, the one that people come to climb.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, it's a serious effort. I mean, not super technical, big old slog. I mean, we're talking about Mont Blanc here, obviously, but people take the cable car up to the Aiguille de Midi. It's one of the highest in Europe. It's certainly one of the most spectacular. I mean, some people think that they are on Mont Blanc, but technically, they're not. But the views from there are incredible.
Yeah, and it is an absolute must-do when in Chamonix, and many climbers take to it either to climb Mont Blanc from there or other peaks in the area, of course. Yeah,
true. It's that kind of crazy mix of mountaineers and normal tourists in a way that makes it, in some ways, really cool. People that from Middle East standing next to someone wrapped up in ropes and carabiners and a big backpack and a helmet.
Yeah, that's fairly unique. That extreme happens in just a few places.
Yeah, and actually Grindelwald comes to mind, but it's not as apparent as in Chamonix when you see it. You just see it all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. So let's look at what else you can do. So mountain biking, rock climbing, absolutely. Hiking, of course, and there's some classic ones too. There's obviously golf, high ropes, forest park, swimming, obviously got it all. Tennis, whatever you want.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's endless. I mean, there's a cool skate park, whitewater rafting. I did that a couple of years back. Loads of fun. Rock climbing, all levels there, starting right in just outside of the town centre, lives like a nursery slope of rock climbing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it ramps up from there big time. Some of the classic mountaineering routes of the Alps, such as the Grand Jurasse and the Aiguille de Dreux. So, I mean, there's definitely some big climbs there.
Yeah, serious climbs. I'd say the mountain biking it's not park style, it's perhaps not the classic mountain biking destination, but there's a really nice, cool sort of circular trail that works really well for e-biking as well. It's not too technically difficult. There's a couple of different, I think there's a a blue and a red or something like that, and it's quite cool. But it's not a massive mountain biking destination in itself. So
That's a great family resort in the summer for sure. Loads to do both on the mountain and in town. So what about getting there and staying, Rob? What do you think?
Yeah, getting there is easy. I mean, a lot of people choose to drive down in the summer, and having a vehicle there is really useful as well. It's really handy. I mean, we've done that in the summer. I think you have as well, many times.
Yeah.
I mean, you can fly into Geneva. It's just over an hour's drive from there, so there's plenty of transfer options as well. But a car is handy.
Yeah, it is. I always find it handy. It's such a nice drive down there as well. I mean, the range of accommodation's massive as well, isn't it? I know we've both stayed at the Heliopic right in the centre there next to the Aiguille de Midi cable car. So that's really nice.
Yeah, it's a nice 4-star option, isn't there? And a bit of a camping upgrade on that one. I mean, there's top ends hotels like the Albert Premier 5 stars, got Michelin restaurant.
Yeah.
There's a Fully Douce hotel, isn't there? You know, that famous chain of après ski clubs and restaurants. That's quite
really
nice.
Yeah.
And then there's also a couple of UCPA centres, one in Chamonix and another up in Argentière, just up the valley. I mean, they do a huge range of mountain activity courses through the summer, and they're good valley places to stay as well.
Yep, definitely. So well worth checking out chamonix.com for more info on accommodation, right, Rob? So on to our bucket list, and we're going to cover some of these things that you might want to do in the mountains during the summer. And we thought we'd start with a true epic bucket list.
Yeah, Dom. I mean, certainly one that I would like to take on one day. I think it's the Matterhorn, obviously in the Swiss town of Zermatt, but also the Italian town of Cervinia, where the mountain is known as the Cervin. Yeah. There's a lot to take in there.
Yeah, climbing the Matterhorn typically follows the Hernley Ridge route, the most popular and classic ascent. The journey begins in Zermatt, and you can take a series of cable cars or hike to Schwarzsee, situated at 2,600 meters. You can stay the night there too, and continue the next morning if that's your tipple. So from that Schwarzsee hut, it's an exposed ridgeline that runs upwards. It can be pretty tricky technically. Higher up, you're likely to get snow and ice, so crampons needed too. So it's the Hernley Chimney, a steep and narrow gully that's probably the most technical part of the climb, and then up to the summit at 4,478 meters. Are you sure about this, Rob?
No.
Fabulous views of the surrounding peaks and the valleys, and descending the Matterhorn follows the same route as the ascent, with some pretty careful abseiling and down climbing needed too. So I'll leave that one to you, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty serious. And I would say, obviously, it needs a lot of preparation, at least some climbing experience, and definitely a head for heights. And I think that's the trickiest bit, isn't it? But mountain company, tour operator, I should say, Mountain Tracks, they organize week-long trips to Zermatt through the summer with mountain guides, and that includes summiting the Matterhorn. They suggest also getting your fitness levels up, but also to improve, movement skills, agility, balance, flexibility. And they also run training weekends in North Wales, actually, specifically to train for the Matterhorn. But a week in Zermatt with those guys costs £3,675 per person. I mean, that includes pretty much everything, including, of course, a mountain guide for the week. Yeah. And that training weekend costs £435 for the course only. So you can check that out at mountaintracks.co.uk.
Wow, pretty cool, Rob. Well, there we go. We've covered it all. We've covered destinations, what you can do in the mountain, what you can wear, mountain biking. Covered the whole of the summer. We can take the rest of the summer off, Rob, and go and do some of this stuff.
Well, that would be good. I mean, we actually do need to go and do some of this stuff, Dom. Otherwise, it's a bit like, we do plenty of skiing through the winter and talk about it. So it's time to, but we normally do manage to get out to the mountains during the summer. And I'm very much hoping and planning that I will be as well this year. Definitely. So
where's your first one? Have you got anything lined up yet?
Well, I've got to be honest. I normally do by this stage. I mean, last summer I was in Leger, the Port Soleil area. I was in Chamonix briefly. I was in Crans-Montana in Switzerland, and I was in Interlaken and Grindelwald in Switzerland in the summertime.
No.
I'm likely to go to those places again, I think, this summer. Might go to Saint-Gervais as well. I've got some good friends that live there. Okay. And it's just nice in the summer.
Nice.
But yeah, I'd like to. I've got another friend in Chevalier, and I keep saying I'd go down there that way. It's a bit further, but it's again in the summer, it's really, really nice down there.
I think Italy's on the hit list this year. Maybe lakes and mountains in Italy.
Well, I was going to mention the Dolomites, and I would like to go back to the Dolomites. You know, again, a couple of years ago I was there, and it's spectacular in the summertime, and it's just everything about it. You know, the food, the scenery.
Yeah, definitely fancy biking that sella ronda. That's definitely a bit of me.
That's a really good ride for. I wouldn't say for a child.
No.
I wouldn't say for a family ride. It's a little bit too much.
Yeah.
But if you've got an e-bike and you can handle the e-bike reasonably well, it's a nice, accessible adventure for a full-on day of riding that takes in a lot. And it's very easy through the tourist office in Selva to book a group guided tour for the day. And because it's a group, it's not super expensive. The guide, I can't remember how much the cost was now, but it's not a silly money. You know, it's not silly money at all because it's a group. That group might be mixed ability levels, but there's lots of different options for all riders to pick and choose the route down. You do need to, you know, be able to handle a mountain bike a bit and be reasonably fit. But then you can rent an e-bike for the day. Very easy to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Renting an e-bike's not super cheap, but you know, for a good day out, it's a really nice thing to do.
Very good. Right. Well, Rob, that is great advice. It's the end of our first summer podcast episode. That was a big episode. So it shows just how much we've got to talk about when it comes to the summer in the mountains.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much to talk about, and you know, it's almost a bigger subject, I think, than skiing and snowboarding. Maybe certainly a lot to do. So
it certainly is. And listeners, you can stay up to date on everything that's happening out in the mountains this summer by checking out lovethemountains.co.uk, which is our sister site. But if you want to stay in touch with what's going on in ski as well, you can check out inthesnow.com. But if you really like the biking, hiking, climbing, camping, trekking, and all those other fabulous activities, then check out lovethemountains.co.uk. In the meantime, Rob, I will speak to you in a couple of weeks' time.
Thanks, Dom.
Enjoy
Have a good
your
one.
Local hills and mountains and mountain biking, Rob. Have a good one.
Will do.
Cheers, bye.
Summertime,
Cheers, bye.
the feelings in the air. I remember cigarettes, tube socks, sunburns, and long blonde hair.